We couldn't do a session on research and writing for the web at this point in time, this point in history, without talking about the new AI chatbot. So if you haven't been following kind of the flurry of the news and the hype about AI chatbots, OpenAI is the company that recently released an AI chatbot called ChatGPT, which is just far more advanced than anything we've seen so far. And then following closely on its tail, Bing and Google both announced the imminent release of their own AI chatbots. So this introduces a whole new set of challenges and opportunities for English teachers. I just want to start by giving you a little bit of a demonstration of what these chatbots can do, what they look like, and then we'll talk about how to fight them or flow with them in the classroom. So I'm just going to go ahead and type ChatGPT into my search. This is the correct one through OpenAI. I'm going to scroll down to say try ChatGPT. And then you do have to log in. So I've logged in with my Google account. Now, when you're trying this for the first time, you'll notice that oftentimes it gets overloaded with users and it's not available. So I always start by saying hello just to make sure it's working and available. Fingers crossed. Cool. It looks like it's going to be able to help us. So I want to start kind of from the scary perspective, the student's perspective, and show you what students could potentially do with this. I could say, write a 5-paragraph essay about air fighting during World War II, focus on the RAF and American pilots, use sources and cite them in MLA formats. All right, so this might be the prompt that we were working on earlier, the essay the student is writing. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to do that for me. And we're going to watch and see what ChatGPT spits out. The suspense is high. Usually it's a little bit faster than this, but as I say, it can be overloaded with users sometimes. So as you can see, it started writing the introduction to this essay. And what you might notice already is as it's writing, this sounds like a real person writing this essay. Air fighting played a crucial role during World War II, with the Royal Air Force, RAF, and American pilots fighting some of the most intense and decisive battles of the war, I assume. We're going to let ChatGPT continue to write this essay while we go back and talk a little bit more about some of the uses, and then we'll check back in on it later and see how it did. So that should give you a little bit of maybe alarm to know that your students could potentially have an AI write their essay for them. Another alarming aspect of this is that you can't use plagiarism detectors on AI. All of that content is completely original to the AI, so it doesn't exist anywhere else on the web. There are people working on plagiarism detectors for AI. Some of them have been introduced. None of them work perfectly yet, but it's something to keep your eye on in that space. And writing is still a really valuable skill. I think despite the discourse about AI, we all agree that it's still important to teach students how to write. So in the face of AI chatbots, some things you might consider when you're having your students do writing assignments for class is, number one, just make sure they all happen in class. If you're teaching your students about constructing an essay, you might teach it in parts and have students be writing it in class. You might teach the skills, have them do little snippets of practice, and then conclude with like a 1-hour in-class essay. That way it can be monitored either by walking around the room, looking at the screens, using computer monitoring software if you have that, or worst comes to worst, you can go back to old-fashioned pen and paper. I would still do that in class because students could at home use AI and just copy it down. So if you're assessing writing, I would switch that to in class. It's something I've already done in my classrooms this year. Another thing you might consider is still teaching and using writing in the classroom, but thinking more and more about how you can move towards more discussion-based assessment in your classes. Because when we think about the importance of writing, I think really it's about the importance of thinking and constructing ideas. And we can still gauge those skills through discussion, which so far has not been able to be taken over by AI. He's still thinking about this essay. So that's sort of the more negative view of AI, is that students can use it to cheat, and we're going to have to defend against that a little bit. However, I like to focus most of my attention on how AI can benefit you in the classroom. There are tons and tons of ways that AI is going to be useful to us as teachers. Here are some of the ways I've already used it in my classroom. Number one, to ask it to write writing samples that I use with my students. I used to spend a ton of time looking for the perfect paragraph that demonstrates a particular skill. Now I can ask ChatGPT to give me that on a topic that's interesting to my students, or a topic that is on topic for the unit we're talking about. So asking it to write writing samples that I can use in my class. Even better, it can differentiate reading levels. So you can ask it to rewrite a paragraph at a different reading level or different Lexile level for your students. Just like we're watching it, hopefully, it's still thinking. Write that essay. If it finished that essay, I might use that essay with my students to analyze and say, okay, what did it do well? What could it do better? And use the kind of like human influence to revise and edit and make it even better. I like to use it for source and information analysis. So of that essay that it writes about World War II pilots, I then say, okay, let's take some of these facts that it's generated for us and we'll go fact check them. Can we find this information on credible websites? Let's look at the sources it gives us and check those and say, are these real sources? Are these credible sources? Because one thing ChatGPT is known to do is make up sources and sometimes information. I like to use it to give me creative writing prompts. So if you do free writing or journaling, it's great at giving creative writing prompts. It's really good as a revision and editing tool. So if you already let your students use Spellcheck and Grammarly, why not let them use ChatGPT? It is a fantastic editing tool. And then finally, you can use it as a teacher to provide feedback to your students' work. So you give it a rubric, then the students' work, and it can tell you where it thought your students fell on that rubric based on the information that you've already provided. So these are some things to consider about where research and writing is going in the digital age. I highly recommend that you keep your eye on this space because there is a lot more to come. One more check to see if ChatGPT was able to finish this essay. It hasn't yet, but I encourage you now, if you haven't already, go ahead and head over to ChatGPT yourself and ask it to write your own 5-paragraph essay prompt and see how it does.